I'm a Kern with the Florida Gators.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I was just checking to see if you were listening.
From Destrehan, Louisiana. Hold on a second. Hey, guys! Hey! I'm having a press conference, okay? Thank you.
Momentum, excitement, energy. They say all this stuff, and you know what they mean, but it doesn't describe what you mean. It's just sort of out there.
You got barbecue back there, and you didn't invite me. Hurt my feelings.
I was just worried about, listening to, all your guys' rap poison.
Welcome to Sideline Judgment. Here are your hosts, Sergio and Tyler.
Welcome to Sideline Judgment. My name is Sergio, and today we have a split episode. If you were here last season, you'll know that sometimes, given Tyler and I's semi-hectic schedule, I guess we can call it, we sometimes have to record separately, and then I kind of put it together in post and make a little editing situation going on here. So, Tyler, you're going to hear after I am done with my takes on what happened last week and what will happen this coming week. A banger of a college football week we got. Some high profile, incredible games. Those will be talked about later on in 5 Wide and 2 Point. Obviously, my 2 Point will go first. Tyler has already informed me what his 2 Point is, so that way I don't have to, I don't end up picking his. He is slated to go first this week anyway, so that is the right thing to do. And we'll go ahead and wrap things up with Florida Corner, and I may kind of give a little bit of a Sergio Sports Life update. It's a good time to be rooting for the sports teams that I'm rooting for, and thankfully, I have the opportunity to go ahead and talk about it. So we'll begin with quick hits, just one right now. I'll be saying some things as the show goes on in terms of stories that relate to different games, but Michigan State has said that they are beginning the process of firing Mel Tucker. That's a follow-up on last week's story with the sexual misconduct and the suspension without pay that he was given. That hearing to determine if he violated university policy and Title IX and all those things, that is still scheduled for early October. So Michigan State feels like they have enough evidence and information to begin the process of firing Mel Tucker for cause, meaning he, in theory, will not see a penny of that massive contract going forward. Obviously, he's being paid up until he was suspended without pay, but with cause means that he won't be getting that money. Again, we'll see if this is something that ends up sticking like this. I personally feel like Mel Tucker won't be coaching the Michigan State Spartans ever again, but that doesn't mean that he can't walk away with some kind of settlement or something, and we'll just have to see. And as we all know, billable hours undefeated. So, well, with that quick hit, we will move forward into our Hour Around the Nation segment. I'll start in the ACC, run through some games real quick that I found interesting from last week. FSU 31, Boston College 29. This was a game where Boston College really just kind of threw it away at the end. They were neck and neck with Florida State. Jordan Travis suffered an injury at one point, ended up coming back in the game. So FSU, tough game, road, up in Chestnut Hill, up in Massachusetts. But it seems like the Florida teams just tend to win in Massachusetts these days, professional and college. Hey-o, go Fins. Moving forward, Louisville 21, Indiana 14. Louisville's doing some nice things. They're playing good football, and I just felt like this was important. It was a non-conference game for both teams. Obviously, Indiana in the Big Ten, Louisville in the ACC. So kudos for Louisville there. Wake Forest 27, Old Dominion 24. Shout out to Old Dominion for holding in with a consistent 7-8 win ACC team. Old Dominion seems to be kind of putting it on track. I hope this translates to conference play. Historically, it has not, but let's see if that can happen. Moving over to the American Conference, Memphis 28, Navy 24. Memphis kind of sneaking out with a victory here. They should handle Navy handedly. Navy, as we know, Service Academy, undersized and all those things. So I'm glad they were able to get the win, but does leave some question marks, for Memphis going forward. Army 37, UTSA 29, a score I did not expect to read. Army, as you know, has been noted, Army has kind of moved away from the triple option, kind of moving into a little bit more of a traditional offense. We'll see if that can stick and that can work. And then with UTSA, just very curious about our Roadrunners. They really shouldn't be dropping a game to Army. So we'll see how that goes. And then Clemson 48, FAU 14. This game was never in doubt, unfortunately for me and my family. Game started off with a pick six, and then bad just went to worse for the Owls because Casey Thompson confirmed to have torn his ACL and is out for the season. So FAU going to be looking for a new quarterback heading into conference play. They have to worry about Illinois this week, but after that, yeah, not a good week for the Owls in football, nonetheless. So we'll see how that goes. Over to the Big 12. Way too many acronym conference names. Texas 31, Wyoming 10. Wyoming's a good football team, a really good group of 5 team, and this game was really close up until, I believe, the fourth quarter. This was classic Texas overperforming and getting the big victory over Bama on the road, and the energy is high, and then they come home, and then they are flat, and that's kind of what we were, by we, I just mean college football fans. If you're someone that subscribes to the idea that Texas is back, then you would want to see Texas really responding after a big victory over Bama, and it was nice that they kind of got it together in the end, but this 21-point score line is not indicative of how close this game actually was, so interesting to keep an eye on. Oklahoma 66, Tulsa 17, another one that was never in doubt. Talking to my brother during this game, I was driving to go hang out with some friends up in West Palm, and I was on the phone with my brother who was watching the game, and he just kept telling me how Tulsa really just seemed like a mini Norman, which is expected. So nice to see them get back on track and, get away from those distractions of the Art Briles situation from last week. So he did not appear on the field with a polo this time. So that's an improvement for Oklahoma in my eyes. Ohio 10, Iowa State 7. Big yikes on Matt Campbell. We got to start having the conversation. I'm sorry, Tyler, but we got to start having this conversation about your Cyclones. Apparently there was a fan who yelled at Matt Campbell after this game, "You're on the hot seat," and he got into a verbal discussion with this fan, and that's kind of an indicator of just the pressure that I think Matt Campbell's on and where Iowa State can kind of go from this, UCF 48, Villanova 14, never in doubt. Miami of Ohio 31, Cincinnati 24 in overtime. Shout out to Miami of Ohio. This is an in-state. I don't know if it's a rivalry. You'd have to ask Miami of Ohio and Cincinnati fans that question, because I'm not well versed enough in what's considered a rivalry between a MAC team and a now Big 12 team, formerly of the American, formerly of the Big East. So you'd have to ask them, but wow, good for Miami of Ohio. That really sets them up nice for this MAC conference play. And Cincy, Luke Fickell's a really good coach. And while early returns aren't what people would like to see at Wisconsin, I do think that Cincinnati's a good football team. Wisconsin's a good football team and a well-coached football team. And that's something that Cincinnati's missing, along with, the Sauce Gardners, the Desmond Ritter. Those guys aren't there anymore. So interesting to see how they kind of transition. They can bounce back from this really bad loss into conference play and see how it goes. Speaking of trying to bounce back from a really bad loss, South Alabama 33, Oklahoma State 7. You heard that right. South Alabama 33, Oklahoma State 7. Mike Gundy, you got some questions to be answered. And in the Big 12, it goes from bad to worse because TCU putting the smackdown on Houston, beating them 36-13. We need to start having some serious conversations about the head coaching job at Houston and the fact that Houston definitely is the worst of the 4 new Big 12 teams, but they might be the worst team in the Big 12. Stay tuned on that. But hey, basketball season's coming up. Kansas 31, Nevada 24. Anytime Kansas wins a football game, I feel like they deserve to be on the Around the Nation segment because it's been so long since we've had that. And you will hear more about Kansas in a bit. In the Big 10, Iowa 41, Western Michigan 10. Iowa scored over 40 points. That to me is grounds for putting you in the rundown. In the Pac-12, Sacramento State 30, Stanford 23. Stanford coach, whose name is escaping me at the current moment, Stanford's coach left Sacramento State last year to take the Stanford job. So not only is this an FCS upset, but this is probably the most go out there and prove that coach that he made a mistake from leaving our program to go to the big shining lights of the Power 5 and go to a big name brand like Stanford instead of being in Sacramento State. So good on those players, good on that team. And just these are the college football stories that I love. And just incredible to see. I'm going to skip over the Colorado game for now. I will get back to it before 5 wide because I do have some Colorado thoughts that I want to expand upon. So for now, we're going to move to the SEC. Georgia 24, South Carolina 14. I want to read you the exact text message that I received from Tyler because I was driving during this during the first half of this game. I was able to watch the second half, but at that point, that wasn't really a half that I wanted to watch. Yeah, so I went ahead and texted Tyler, and I was asking him, "Hey, I just checked the score of the game. What's going on here? Like Georgia, what's happening?" And he basically just kind of told me like, "Hey man, stop jinxing it." And I think that I may have jinxed it because he's like, "Don't talk about it. It's like a no-hitter." So yeah. Georgia did win that game. I'm curious to see if Georgia can really grab the bull by the horns, for lack of a better expression, to see if they can really take control of being the best team in the SEC, because I think it's unquestioned that they have the most talent, they have the best situation, and they're coming off of back-to-back undefeated national championship winning seasons. I know that they were led by Stetson Bennett and he's no longer there, and they had a lot of players, but Georgia's been recruiting at a level where they should be able to plug and play. And I know for a fact, I personally believe Carson Beck to be a better quarterback than Stetson Bennett, but I don't know what it is, man. We'll have to see. And yes, the Todd Monken leaving for the the Broward Ravens offensive coordinator position is a big deal, but I mean, Kirby should be playing the ball he kind of wants to play, and as evidenced by the Gator game this past weekend, which we'll get to in a bit, it seems to be working in the SEC, so I don't know. Anyway, they took care of business. They won. Alabama 17, USF 3. This was... Oof. Okay, I'm not ready to have is the Saban era unofficially over, because the Saban era won't officially finish until he retires, but unofficially in terms of being over, in terms of like the fear that's like struck into teams when they're playing Alabama, at least at the highest level, right? At, like what we saw last week with Texas, or, the eventual LSU game, or maybe this upcoming Ole Miss game. But I don't know if that's there anymore, but I would like to kind of flesh out that idea with Tyler on a future episode. We'll see how the Ole Miss game goes this week, and I think from there, maybe next week we'll have that conversation. So Tyler, I know you're listening to this. Let's earmark that for next week's podcast, and let's put that on the rundown for next week. And I'm very interested to see where that goes. Jalen Milroe, will be starting against Ole Miss. Bama started someone, I think it was Ty Simpson. Maybe he came off the bench for the second half, but Milroe did not start the first half or the second half in this game. And I think it's very interesting that Saban is doing this flip-flop of the quarterbacks because he's not known for that. We'll see how that goes with Alabama taking on Ole Miss this week. In the Sun Belt, App State 43, ECU 28. Nice to see them get back on track after that North Carolina loss. That was, again, super close. Tulane 21, Southern Miss 3. Good teams take care of business. Georgia Southern 41, Charlotte 25. Georgia Southern, again, transitioning away from the triple option. They are coached by Clay Helton, former USC head coach, and he seems to be doing a hell of a job down there. It's very interesting to see a team that used to run the triple option now look like a normal, well, I shouldn't say normal, but a more traditional offensive team now. And it's very interesting to see that team have offensive results so quickly. I know that it's the Sun Belt and it's not, the SEC or the Big Ten and all those things, but it's still not an easy thing to do. I mean, CC Jeff Collins at Georgia Tech, but he's able to do it, man. And it's been working in these first 3 games, so we'll see how it stacks up for the rest of the season. Louisiana 41, UAB 21. I laugh every time I see a UAB play because it's like they literally went out and hired the dude from the Elite 11 and thought that it would work. It's working with Colorado in terms of hiring a big name guy. Doesn't seem like it's working with UAB when they hired Trent Dilfer. So I think you're seeing the two ends of the spectrum on those things. We'll get to Colorado in a second. And then James Madison 16, Troy 14. Close game, but James Madison +1, never in doubt. Let's take a look at last week's 5-wide and 2-point games. LSU 41, Mississippi State 14. Tyler and I both picked those, so we both get the points on that one. This game was never in doubt for LSU. They really were the better team. Mississippi State had its moments, especially at the end of the first half, but really LSU dominated the whole game. And unfortunately, safety Greg Brooks went out. Is going to be out indefinitely with what LSU is saying is, quote, a medical emergency. So we hope that LSU safety is doing well, and hopefully whatever is going on with him kind of clears up. North Carolina 31, Minnesota 13. Tyler and I both get the points on this one. So nice to see Drake May do the things that I was hoping for early in the season. Last week I talked about I really want to see that next step from Drake May. I'm one of the top quarterbacks in the 2024 quarterback prospects, I should say, in the 2024 NFL draft. And he played like it this one. They were taking on Minnesota, PJ Fleck, all those things, and so it was nice to see them take care of business when they needed to. Washington 41, Michigan State 7. Tyler and I both get the points on this one. I mean, we knew this was going to happen, right? With all the stuff going on with Mel Tucker at Michigan State, and on top of that, Washington being one of the most lethal offenses in college football. We need to start seriously having conversations about Washington, not just as a playoff, appearing in the playoff, but could maybe win a playoff game and get to the national championship game. What's going on with that offense is incredible to watch, and the poetic justice of a Pac-12 team that was kind of overlooked in the first line of realignments and then brought in on that second round and being quite literally in one of the most Pac-12 cities ever in Seattle, I think is a beautiful story. And, as Tyler and I love to say, our Huskies that we're, always adopting kind of thing, played really well. The offense looks really good and it's humming on all cylinders over there. BYU 38, Arkansas 31. Tyler and I both picked Arkansas. This was a fun game, back and forth. BYU looks good. Arkansas looks good. It's going to be a fun season for both of those teams, but we unfortunately picked Arkansas last week. And the backyard brawl, baby. West Virginia 17, Pitt 6. Tyler and I both get the points on that one. It was nice to see, and I think Neil Brown, the West Virginia head coach, really bought himself some time in terms of the hot seat because he did win the biggest game on their schedule. And if you don't think that that's not the biggest game on their schedule, I urge you to speak to a West Virginia alum or a Pitt alum and talk to them about how important the backyard brawl is. I don't know when we're going to see this game again because it was a home and home last year. It kind of started the season. Everyone remembers that fantastic Thursday night game that Pittsburgh won in Pitt, and then West Virginia now wins the return leg at home. So both teams take care of business at home in the home and home. I hope this game comes back and becomes a more regular occurrence. So on the 2-point front, I picked Maryland to beat Virginia, and they did 42-14. So I get the 2 points on that one. Maryland likes to do this thing where they spot teams maybe 10 points or something, and then they decide to just kind of come back and take care of business. And that's what happened here with Maryland. So never in doubt. Good for me. And then Tyler picked Kansas State to beat Missouri, which they did not. Missouri wins 30-27 on one of the craziest sequences to end a game that I've seen in a long time. So to paint the picture, Missouri's about the 40-ish yard line, and they end up spiking the ball with 8 seconds left, but they don't have any timeouts. And so they spike the ball, and of course it's an incomplete pass, so the play clock resets to 40 and starts running. And it keeps running, and it keeps running, and the Missouri team as a whole is standing there, as if it's a timeout. Both coaches are on the field coaching them up. Players are getting water. They're having conversations. Meanwhile, the Kansas State defense is on the field, and it looked like they had 12 men on the field. So it turns out that they were just kind of thinking that it was a timeout, and it wasn't. And when the play clock gets to 5, Eli Drinkwitz comes over and is like, hey, guys, we got to snap the ball, because I think even he thought they were in a timeout, even though they weren't in a timeout because they were out and nobody called one. It was insanity. Look, if Missouri lost that game, Eli Drinkwitz should have been fired a la Lane Kiffin on the tarmac, because to have a brain fart that massive in such literally the most important moment of the game is insane. But as you know, Missouri wins this because they then try to take a Hail Mary after they take the 5-yard delay a game. The ball gets swatted down and they have 3 seconds left, and they send out the kicker and go, forget it, let's just give it a shot. And this kicker hits a 61-yard field goal, the longest field goal in SEC history. And to be honest, it had another 5 or 7 yards on it. This man booted the ball through the uprights. It would have been good from 50, 65, 66, I'm convinced, to win the game. And wow, just an incredible moment. Fun fact, while it's the longest field goal in SEC history, it is only the second longest field goal in Missouri history, because I guess Missouri hit a field goal longer than 61 yards, and they were either in the Big 12 or the Big 8 or whatever. But that's kind of a fun fact there. So crazy ending to the game. Eli Drinkwitz, the whole I forgot it wasn't a timeout thing is going to get overlooked, but just some insanity. The Sickos committee would be so proud. Just fantastic stuff. Our score to date, I have 24 points and Tyler has 15. You know, Tyler, this is more than a one-score game, my friend, and we're still in September. If you lost your fastball, just let me know. Like, it's okay. Like, you know, I love you. You're my brother, and, like, I'll be with you no matter what. Like, we're riding this podcast to the grave, but my brother in Christ, like, we got to get it together. Like, come on. Like, whoo, you're down 9? Oh, couldn't be me. All right, before I go into 5 wide and 2 point for this week, I do want to talk about the Colorado game. So Colorado ends up beating Colorado State 43-35 in double overtime. Game day was there. The Rock was there. Kawhi Leonard, who like doesn't even show up for work half the time, was at the Colorado game. There was a lot of conversations about the whole Jay Norvell, the Colorado State head coach, like basically like disrespecting Deion. Like, my mother taught me to take my glasses off and take my glasses and hat off when I speak to someone, blah, 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 all that stuff. But I want to talk something a little bit more high level. This Colorado thing is one of the more... This Colorado thing, and I'm leaving this all in because I'm really trying to find the words as I speak it, but the Colorado situation this year is incredible in every sense of the word. This is something that I am getting text messages from people who don't watch college football, barely know who Deion Sanders is, and are just flabbergasted because on The Rock's Instagram, he was there, or Pat McAfee's Instagram, he was there. Like, these are people that are sports fans and not sports fans alike, all asking me, like, what's going on in Colorado? And I think the answer that I can give people is that this is a cultural moment. And I mean cultural in multiple ways. I mean cultural in terms of this is going to be one of those singular moments that we remember in 30, 40, 50, 60 years and are telling our grandkids, like, yeah, that one season. I don't know if it's one season or not, but definitely we'll talk about this season, regardless of where it goes. Like, they could lose out every other game and it's still just as magical. Like, this is, I saw on Twitter someone say this, and I apologize, I don't know who it was, but not someone I follow, but I definitely came across the tweet, and it's like, this Colorado thing is like watching what the Fab Five Michigan basketball team in the 90s would have been, but in 2023. Like, if we had Twitter, you know, if we had GIFs, if we had, like, you know, ways of sharing stuff quickly. Like, what's happening is Deion is tapping into not just a section of college football that has been often overlooked, and that is the West Coast, especially a program like Colorado. But he is bringing the whole Deion Sanders enterprise with him, and as a result is elevating the sport. Like, this may be a flash in the pan, and Deion may like do a year or two at Colorado and jump to another quote unquote better job. Maybe the NFL, like, who knows what his ultimate goals are, because if Deion Sanders has taught us anything, is that Deion Sanders is interested in Deion Sanders, and good for him, he should be. But it's incredible, like, what's happening. Like, you get The Rock on there, you get both game day and big noon kickoff were at Colorado this week. Deion was on both shows on Saturday morning. It's fantastic what's happening, and what it does is it is bringing college football into the mainstream. If you're listening to this podcast, you are, just like Tyler and I, a college football junkie. And I mean that in the best way possible. We live for this sport. It is crazy. It is wacky. It is sometimes repulsive morally. But for some reason, we just can't look away when Missouri decides that they're going to spike the ball and they forget that it's not a timeout and they take a delay of game, but it doesn't matter because they hit a 61-yarder to win it. We can't look away when on the first possession of the game, Colorado State throws a pick six to one of Deion Sanders' kids, Shiloh Sanders, ends up getting the pick six. And in a week full of narratives that included Jay Norvell disrespecting the Sanders family and Shador, the quarterback, saying, I'm gonna go and defend my dad, the quiet Sanders, Shiloh, the defensive back, the one who's playing a similar position than his dad, who, by the way, is one of the greatest defensive backs to ever play the game of football at across any level. And he comes up with I'm getting goosebumps describing it. Like he gets a pick six on the first possession of the game, and Boulder looks like it's going to collapse in the best way possible. It reminded me of the LaMichael Pirine run for the Pirine run from the Auburn game in 2019. If you were at Florida, like that is a core memory of mine. Like those kind of moments are what bond not just a city, not just a community, not just a team, but it's why we watch college football. And listen, I am the first person to tell you that I had my doubts about Deion, not as a good coach, but in terms of the productivity in his first season in charge. But man, even if they don't win a single game for the rest of the year, if they get blown out to Oregon, if Oregon blows them out by 40, if USC blows them out by 70, it doesn't matter. What he's been able to do in this short amount of time is fantastic. And I just think that in a season where the narrative going into it was doom and gloom, and I can't believe that the college football I know and love is going away. And believe me, I still am very sad about a lot of changes that are going to happen in college football. This Colorado and Deion Sanders story has kind of reminded me that it's okay to live in the moment. It's okay to appreciate what's going on in front of you without the eternal existential doom and gloom that we tend to occupy ourselves with when having conversations of realignment, when having conversations about the playoff expansion, when having conversations about Group of 5 versus P5. Then there's moments like this, and you're like, man, I love this sport. And what Deion is doing is so captivating, and I just can't wait to see where it goes. I just wanted to do some time about Colorado. I don't know how long that took, but listen, it's just a great moment, you know? Like it's gonna be a great moment, and it is already, and I'm just so excited for where this can go and all those things. So I do want to say the player that hit Travis Hunter, Henry Blackburn, he's the player that had let's be real, it was a cheap shot. Like after the play, wasn't making a play on the ball. Like he and his family are receiving death threats after the hit on Travis Hunter, obviously one of the stars of Colorado. Apparently he has a lacerated liver and he's going to be out for a few weeks. Hope he recovers and does well, because he is a two-way star in college football, and the sport is better with him on the field Saturdays. But yeah, man, the death threats are a bit too much. I think it was a dirty hit. If you want to ask my opinion, I think he got the penalty, but I think he should have been thrown out. I don't know if he was or wasn't, but I think he should have been thrown out. I think he should be suspended for a game. Like that was literally him going after the player. And then Jay Norvell, after all the smack that he talked, I think Colorado State had like 15 penalties for close to like 150, 170 yards on penalty yards, like basically gifting Colorado this game. And that's another thing. Like this whole Colorado story is going on, been like, yeah, they played well. They played well in the opener against TCU. They played really well in the opener against TCU. Yes, they played well in the second half of Nebraska and took care of business and stopped playing with their food, but they didn't play very well in this game. Now, how much of that has to do with Travis Hunter going out early? That's a conversation we can have for another day, but they didn't play very well, and Colorado State kind of gave them that game. Curious to see how that transfers over to what we will begin our 5 wide and 2 point for week 4 with, which is the number 19 ranked Colorado Buffaloes heading to Eugene to take on the number 10 ranked Oregon Ducks. That's a 3:30 kickoff on ABC. Interesting matchup here. This to me is the biggest test that Colorado will have all season. Now, I know that you're saying Sergio, but if you look at the schedule, the week after they're playing USC, who are seen to be whose perception is that they're a better team. And I agree. I do think that USC is a better team than Oregon. But the USC game's at home. And with a home Colorado game, we know that that is going to have the whole circus that we literally just saw last week against Colorado State. That's going to happen, but with Caleb Williams in town and Lincoln Riley in town and stars coming into town. Like Los Angeles is coming to Boulder, Colorado in 2 weeks. Colorado has to take care of business first and head up to Eugene in one of the toughest atmospheres to play west of the Mississippi and one of the toughest atmospheres to play in the entire country. And that doesn't get talked about enough because it's out in Oregon. Very excited for this game. I think that this is the first slip up that Colorado has. I know I just spent 10 minutes praising Colorado and Dion and the story and stuff, but I think this game is the one that they'll struggle a bit more with compared to USC. And the loss of Travis Hunter for a few weeks, man, that's not nothing. He is a starter on both sides of the ball. He is a two-way stud, and not having one of the 5 best players in college football, in my opinion, is kind of tough for Colorado, especially in the not first true road game, because that TCU game was a true road game, but definitely the first, like, oh boy, like the big boys. We're playing the big boys now, okay? So I'm going to take I am going to take Oregon in that one. At the same time, on Fox, we have the number 22 ranked UCLA Bruins taking on the number 11 ranked Utah Utes. It's just so nice to have, and we will get to the third one, but 3 Pac-12 games in this 5 wide and 2 point this week. All 3 of them top 25 ranked matchups. It's just nice to see, especially in this season. But I'm going to go with Utah for this one. This is just putting my faith in a Utah team over a UCLA team. UCLA's offense is like decided that they're going to go back to 1947 sometimes, and it's really effective, but I just think Utah's a better roster and a better football team. I would much rather take Kyle Whittingham's coaching over Chip Kelly in this day and age, so I'll take Utah on that one. At the same time, the number 15 ranked Ole Miss Rebels are taking on the number 13 ranked Alabama Crimson Tide, and this is the 3:30 game of the week. This is the last season that the SEC is on CBS. I know last week I said, and this whole season I've been saying that, oh, it's over, no more, but I forgot that this is the one year they overlap. So we do get one more year of big time 3:30 CBS game of the weeks. And this one's Ole Miss Alabama. It is at Bryant-Denny in Tuscaloosa. Now, you're gonna call me crazy. You're gonna call me insane. You're gonna say, Sergio, Nick Saban, you think he's gonna lose 2 straight home games in a row? And I'll say yes, because there was a 17-3 stinker against USF in between those 2 home losses. Ole Miss is playing good football. The defense is good. And Lane Kiffin always has that offense moving. Jackson Dart is doing really good at Ole Miss. And there are so many question marks with this Alabama team. I just can't, in good faith, pick them at the moment. I hope I'm wrong, but if what I think is going to happen happens, then I think we're going to have that Alabama conversation next week. And I'll leave it at that because I don't want to go too into it without fleshing out this idea with Tyler, because we do our best thinking when we have our conversations before and after the pod. So I'm going to wait and hold off on that. But I'm going to take Ole Miss. And it's more so because I know what I'm going to get out of Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin. This is a wild statement to make, but I don't know what I'm getting out of Nick Saban in Alabama. Oh, that felt weird. Okay, we're going to move forward. Game of the week. The sideline judgment game of the week. 7 o'clock kickoff Eastern time on Fox. Number 14 ranked, our Oregon State Beavers, taking on the number 21 ranked, our Washington State Cougars. Can they both win? I would like for both of these teams to win really badly, please. I hope this is a preview of the Pac-12 title game. And yeah, these are the last outlaws. They're the Lone Rangers. They are, I like that, the last outlaws. I think that's what I'm gonna stick with that nickname for them. I'm gonna go Oregon State. This is first and foremost a Beavers podcast, and I would be bugging if I didn't take Oregon State here, so I'll take them there. And then the primetime game, number 6 ranked Ohio State Buckeyes are traveling to South Bend to take on the number 9 ranked Notre Dame Fighting Irish. 7:30 Eastern kick on NBC. This is a game that will tell us a lot of things about both Ohio State and Notre Dame. Ohio State hasn't really played anyone lately. Notre Dame hasn't played anyone either. This is the first true test for both of them. This is going off brand, but I'm going to go with Notre Dame. And I think it's because I like Sam Hartman so much, and I have faith in him that the highlights and parts of the first few games of the year that I've seen have been good. And Ohio State seems to be a good team, definitely one of the 10 best teams in the country, but they're kind of directionless. Like, I don't know. I have questions about them in terms of the secondary. I have questions about them in terms of the consistency of the quarterback play. We saw a couple weeks ago Marvin Harrison Jr. kind of get frustrated because he didn't have, he didn't have C.J. Stroud there anymore, and it's going to take some time for those guys to kind of come up. But this could be the game. I just have a bit more faith in Sam Hartman. It is at home, and it gives me a lot of the vibes from that that Clemson game from 2020. When they went in and DJ Uiagalelei kind of stunk up the place and Notre Dame got the win. I think there's something about a Notre Dame primetime night game against a big-time program that, while I still strongly believe they should join a conference and get over themselves, I do think that plays to their advantage. So I'm going to take the Fighting Irish in that game. And then my 2-point is going to be my Fighting Kansas Jayhawks over BYU at home. It is a 3:30 Eastern kick on ESPN. I urge everyone to kind of watch this game. And if you're not, I do have some honorable mentions. Typically, by rule, if it's a matchup of 2 top 25 teams, Tyler and I will put them in together, in the 5 wide, I should say. But we had an odd man out this week, and that is number 24 Iowa taking on number 7 Penn State, 7:30 Eastern on CBS. So an interesting doubleheader there on CBS. You got Ole Miss Bama at 3:30, and you got Iowa Penn State at 7:30 because those two games are on the same level of quality. Sorry, no offense, Iowans, I should say. And so that game is there. Another honorable mention. I wanted to put FSU, number 4 ranked in the country, taking on Clemson, noon kickoff on ABC. But Clemson hasn't really showed us enough. Before the season started, we were like, oh my God, this game's going to decide the ACC. And now, when's FSU playing Duke? Honestly, when's the FSU Miami game? Because as a South Floridian, born, bred, native, and living here, oh boy, that is going to be a fun one this year. I can't wait for that. And then, of course, I have number 16 ranked Oklahoma traveling to Nippert Stadium to take on Cincinnati, noon Eastern on Fox. The FSU game is a noon kickoff on ABC, by the way. And I have this here because this is one of the 2 Big 12 big boys, one half of Red River, traveling to one of the new Big 12 teams. So I know the crowd's going to be up for it. Interesting. I have Oklahoma on upset alert here, so we'll see how that goes. Those are my honorable mentions. And then talk about the Gators from last week in Florida Corner. Florida 29, Tennessee 16, never in doubt. So glad that we could kind of execute that offense. I told you a million times, I'm going to say it a million times more. I don't trust Josh Heupel's offenses and his scheme when he doesn't have, the perfect players for it, and I don't think he has the perfect players for it. Milton's a good quarterback, but I think he's a kind of a deep threat, and he can't really do the intermediate and slower, softer stuff as good, and you can't really sustain an offense that way. And on top of that, I just don't like it as Heupel is further out of school, right? I watched all the UCF games. His teams got worse as the years went on. The previous person's recruits get out of there, and then afterwards, it's kind of an issue. So for me, I was very glad I was vindicated. The Florida offense looked really good. Trevor Etienne. I know Tyler would like to say thanks to Mama Etienne. I would like to say thanks to Mama Etienne as well, but just for Trevor, because, man, that boy can run. He is so good. The offensive line played really well. The defense was aggressive. The Gators were down 7-0 to start, and then they scored, I believe it was 26 straight points unanswered. They ended up getting another 3 to win it 29-16. This game was never in doubt, and it's just so nice to see the swamp jumping. That's exactly what the Gators needed. The swamp jumping, exactly what it needed to be. It was a fun game to watch on TV. I wish I was there. And we just don't lose to Tennessee at home. Listen, Florida-Tennessee in the swamp has a very special place in my heart because that is the game that is the impetus for Sideline Judgment. All right, Tyler and I were friends before that, but in my senior year and his junior year, we went to there and we were sitting in the hallway, the theater hallway, the Monday after the game, and we were talking about the game, and I was like, we should start a podcast and talk about this because like we had such great chemistry talking football. We were already friends, like, and you know, now here we are 7 years later, and I'm talking into a microphone by myself, and I'm going to splat Tyler's part afterwards at the end for this long episode you're going to get. So just got a special place in my heart. So it's so nice to see that happen. Tennessee hasn't won in Gainesville since like 2003. So it's like the Ron Zook era, which is an absurd stat, but love to see it. This coming week, the Gators are ranked 25 in the country, baby. We are back in the rankings. We're taking on Charlotte at home, 7 o'clock Eastern kickoff on the SEC Network Plus / ESPN Plus. So you can find that game on there. Listen, not to look too far ahead, but the Gators have a chance to be 6-1, 5-2 heading into the Georgia game after the bye week. After this, the next 4 games are Charlotte at home, Kentucky on the road, which is always tough, Vanderbilt at home, and then South Carolina on the road. I think we can win all 4 of those games, and I think maybe we go 3-1 if the offense is managed in the same way that it was against Tennessee, and if the defense is as aggressive up front and helping out the secondary. I think the Gators have a chance to be 5-2, 6-1 heading into the Georgia game, and that is a good sign for the health of the program and a good sign going forward. And I think a lot of the pressure will be taken off in terms of public perception, Billy Napier, and I can't wait for that. So, alrighty, well, listen, that's it for my part here. I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Tyler. Before I do that, I just want to talk about real quick Tua and how he's 5-0 against Bill Belichick, how he's the odds-on favorite for NFL MVP. I think he's tied with Mahomes on some sites. How Tyreek Hill is the front runner for Offensive Player of the Year. How the Dolphins defense is showing up when it counts. How Bradley Chubb is playing up to his contract only when it matters, like last drives of games. How the Dolphins ended up going into New England on a Sunday night in prime time and were just hands down the better team and kind of played with their food, in my opinion. They didn't really get... They should have put it away a lot earlier than they did. Like, this team is so much fun to watch, and it starts and ends with Tua Tagovailoa, and I am just so happy that he is going on this ride. I hope he stays healthy. I know that everyone's concerned about that, and I understand that, but I really do have faith in the way that this team is playing, the talent they have. Oh, and Saturday's game without Jalen Phillips, our best pass rusher. Like, come on, man. Like, this team... I'm going to say it now so it's on record, but the expectation with this team should be the AFC Championship game at a minimum. I don't see a team in the AFC, maybe outside of the Chiefs with when Mahomes decides that he's popping. The AFC North looks ridiculous. The West I'm not afraid of at all. I don't see... The East is ours. I don't see... And then the South is... I don't see another team that is better in the AFC than the Dolphins right now, and definitely best in the conference right now. And then obviously Mahomes is Mahomes, so you got to worry about that. But man, if we can lock up some serious home field advantage coming up in the playoffs, I know it's week 2. I know I'm overreacting, but the talent this team has me seriously, genuinely thinking about things that I have never thought about in my life as a Dolphins fan. Seriously, I've thought about the Super Bowl in my dreams. I have cried about the Super Bowl in my dreams. I have visualized and imagined what it's like to win an AFC championship, to win the division when Brady doesn't tear his ACL in 2008, like to be one of the best teams in the league. And it looks like they have that potential this year, and I just want to it's like the baby bird. I'm holding it in my hand and I don't want to squeeze it too tight, but I also want to give it all the love in the world. Dolphin games, honestly, I'm watching Dolphin games much tighter and anxious and nervous than any Gator game this season, and that is the first time in my life that is the truth. And I just hope that it's working out. Hockey season's around the corner. The Cats are doing well. I'm literally watching the Marlins on the top of the ninth, up 3-1 in a massive playoff hunt right now. The Heat are about to get Damian Lillard. Like, sports are good right now, man. This is the best time in my sports life, and I am just trying to enjoy it every single day. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this part from me. I know it was a little bit long, had a lot to talk about, but I'm going to go ahead and pass this off to Tyler so he can give you all of his opinions and all the takes, and he can try to make an explanation as to why he's 9 points down and 5 wide and 2 points. So thanks for listening. I hope that you have a fantastic week. Here is Tyler, and just don't forget that we're not biased, but go Gators. Tyler, take it away.
Hey everyone, welcome to Sideline Judgment. This is Tyler. Sorry I couldn't be with Sergio for this week's recording, but work's gonna work. But I'm excited to get right into it. So quick around the nation, I'm kind of gonna jump around here since I don't have my partner to bounce off of. But the ones that really stick out to me, FSU 31, Boston College 29. Record-breaking amount of penalties for Boston College. Not great. Still only lost by 2 points, but absolutely tragic to just come up so short because you made a school record-breaking penalty. On FSU's side, this is really good for them to be able to win a game like this, to win a close one. They haven't had to deal with that necessarily. But it does show that they can get that they're not invincible, and that's interesting. It's an interesting development. It provides hope for a lot of the ACC teams and maybe a chink in the armor. However, I'm not gonna dwell too much on this because this could just be the bad performance game. I do think it is interesting. It's good to know that FSU does have a chink in the armor. It makes it more interesting. But good for FSU to be able to win this type of game. Moving on, Louisville 21, Indiana 14, Wake Forest 27, Old Dominion 24. I don't have much of a take here. Moving on to the American, Army 37, UTSA 29. I know Frank Harris was taken out in this game. I think we had a boot on his leg when I was watching it. It has been very surprising to me how much UTSA has struggled this season. But good for Army. It's always fun to see Army do well. On the flip side, Memphis 28, Navy 24. Not great for Navy. And then Clemson 48, FAU 14. I know Sergio put them on upset alert, and I'm sorry for Sergio Raul, but Clemson is at least looking. They're starting to figure it out, and unfortunately for them, as we will talk about in just a minute, they need to figure it out because they got a big one coming up next week, but they're at least beating out the teams that they should. And it turns out that Duke is for real, so there's that. Moving on to the Big 12, Texas 31, Wyoming 10. First of all, I also don't. Okay. This was not great for Texas, but they did win, so that's good for them. And then the reality is, this game will be forgotten about if they continue to win, but. This would have been the classic Texas, we're back, absolutely just mess it up the next week. But they got over that. And I didn't get to watch too much of this game, but I was keeping an eye on it, and it was tight for way too long. But Texas does come out with the W. Oklahoma 66, Tulsa 17. They let out some aggression with that one. Ohio 10, Iowa State 7. Big story here was that Matt Campbell evidently got into a screaming match with a Iowa State fan who called for his job. I don't know a lot of the details about that. That's all I really know. But it just shows how fickle the industry is and just the sport in general, because there's a time when Matt Campbell was the hottest name in coaching. He wanted, he was considered for the Michigan job if Harbaugh were to leave. And he was considered for Nebraska, I believe, as well. It's unfortunate that it's not going the way, and now we're all kind of realizing that maybe Brock Purdy was a little special. I still believe that Matt Campbell can figure a lot of stuff out, because at Iowa State, when you're bad, it's just not going to look good. And their defense, is still good. Matt Campbell coordinates a very good defense. But we'll see. UCF 48, Villanova 14. It's just so funny. I'm still trying to get used to seeing UCF in the Big 12 section. Good for them. Miami, Ohio 31, Cincinnati 24 in overtime. Not great for Cincinnati. Not great to be taking losses like this outside of Big 12 conference play in your first year. But we'll see. South Alabama 33, Oklahoma State 7. Yikes. Not great not great at all for Mike Gundy. But South Alabama is not a joke necessarily, but Oklahoma State has not been playing well lately. Really the last couple of years, they've had a couple good years here and there. And this is just kind of the Mike Gundy experience. So, TCU 36, Houston 13. Houston again taking on their trend of not looking good recently. TCU finding a little bit of shape, still showing their DNA. Kansas 31, Nevada 24. Never a doubt that Kansas would win, in my opinion. I say jokingly because I did not get to watch much of this game. Kansas is still Kansas, so it's interesting to see how talented they may be. Because they're good. Jalen Daniels I love, but we'll see. And Nevada's a good team as well. Moving on to the Big Ten. Iowa 41, Western Michigan 10. The only thing I say about that is that it's wild that Iowa even is capable of counting to this high in an offensive score. Moving on. The Pac-12. We're going to skip ahead a little bit. Sacramento State 30, Stanford 23. Stanford's bad. I don't know how else. Stanford's really bad. I don't know how else to say it. Colorado 43, Colorado State 35. This game, I'm sure Sergio has already gone on a major rant about it. But if he hasn't, Colorado State had Colorado dead to rights in this game. They had it. They were killing them with Horton on those crossers. There was just no way that Colorado was going to get back into the game. And this is not even taking into account the Travis Hunter hit, which on that note, I want a big shout out to Deion Sanders himself at a press conference recently, stating that, and I'm abbreviating here, that Colorado State defender receiving death threats was incredibly unsportsmanlike. That it is a game that is part of football. And then Travis Hunter himself on his Twitch stream saying that, hey, it's football, it's all right. Even though it may be a serious hit and the hit that the game is trying to move away from, and it is going to keep Travis Hunter out for the Oregon game, and he's going to be hospitalized. He was hospitalized, and that's serious. But the reality is that it is not worth death threats over. I think quite frankly, people who are doing that, get a grip, touch some grass, because you got to really reorganize your priorities. But speaking of the actual game, Shedeur Sanders. That's he's good. He's legit good. He got the team back into the game. Deion Sanders Colorado is proving that there's a lot of ways to win, in my opinion. There's a lot of ways to succeed in college football, and we always fall in love with the schematic, the football brainy guys, or even like the highly recruited star player teams. And this is just the most wholesome of it all, which is a team that buys in. And it's very clear to me that Deion Sanders' team has bought in. And they came back, they fought through some adversity, 98 yards to tie the game up, send it to overtime. And we got free football. The fact that it was announced that 9.3 million people watched this game is insane to me. I was up, and I thought I was getting sleepy, and I live on the West Coast. But that's the power of Deion Sanders. Colorado is talented. Shedeur Sanders, I think, really is legit, and there's a greater conversation to be had about the Pac-12 and how absolutely insane the quarterback class is in that conference. But they've got a real shot to have something real big going on in Colorado. Maybe not this year, but definitely next year. It's and I'm glad that the nation's getting on the side of. I'm kind of glad that they started off hot, because it's kind of fun to have this happen. I do think that the losses are coming. If Colorado State can do that to you, there are way better teams in the Pac-12, but they're also going to win some games. And more than anything, it's nice that they are fun. It's nice that they're a fun team to watch. They're a fun story to follow. So looking forward to watching more of them. Moving to the SEC, Georgia 24, South Carolina 14. I have two ways of feeling about this. Georgia definitely could have gotten got. They don't look like last year's team. And it's that weird thing with Stetson Bennett, where Stetson Bennett did not have all the talent and whatnot, but he just understood and ran the offense, knew where the ball was supposed to go. And that's something that Carson Beck's going to have to figure out, because, I mean, they did start to really kick it into gear later in the second half. But the other thing is that as a renowned Spencer Rattler doubter, it feels only slightly good to be vindicated. But South Carolina is just a tough team because they play hard. Shane Beamer gets them play hard. It's kind of it's a less flashy Deion Sanders of it all, where it's like very clear that his team is bought into whatever he's guiding them towards. But sometimes I feel like South Carolina doesn't really have an identity. They did look really good on defense and giving Georgia problems, but the offense just couldn't get out of its way. Moving forward, Alabama 17, USF 3. They're ignoring the rain delay. This was bad. This was a bad game for Bama. Bad from Tyler Buchner. Bad from whoever the other guy was. I'm going to be honest, I don't remember. However, I did see something on Twitter that I agree with, that I think part of this may have been just Saban's master plan to make it very clear to the fan base that there's a reason he started Jalen Milroe, because Milroe is going to start for Ole Miss. But Bama got out of this with a win. They look rough, but they look young and inexperienced. And I mean, the rain delay and having just lost to Texas is probably a part of that. I'm only going to take so much stock into this, because it's Alabama. But this could be the start of something new with them. But it's still Alabama, so there's a threshold of talent that you meet, and I do believe in that. Moving on to the Sun Belt, App State 43, ECU 28, Tulane 21, Southern Miss 3, Georgia Southern 41, Charlotte 25, Louisiana 41, UAB 21, and James Madison 16, Troy 14. I don't have really many thoughts on these. I didn't get to watch many of them, other than it really does suck that James Madison comes into a conference and just owns it, coming up from a lower level of football, and isn't really allowed to celebrate that success. I'm going to keep harping on that till I die. Moving on to 5-wide and 2-point conversions, just quickly go through these. LSU 41, Mississippi State 14. They never had a chance. LSU safety Greg Brooks out indefinitely with a medical emergency. Hope the best for him. Both get the points. North Carolina 31, Minnesota 13. Both get the points. Not really. Minnesota kind of had some frisky moments in there, but this was actually turned out to be a game where Drake May had to actually pass a lot, and he looked relatively good. However, like, relative is the way I feel about that, because he has not been the standout draft prospect that everybody looks at him on, and that's the thing. Like, now that he's draft eligible, the rose-colored glasses come off, because everyone's the next great thing when they're a sophomore. But he did have to pass it on this game, and he looked the part for the most part. Washington 41, Michigan State 7. Washington was firmly in control from the start. BYU 38, Arkansas 31. Big surprise. I also did completely forget that Keaton Slovis played for BYU now. Big surprise. Friend of the pod, Courtney Mims, has told me that Arkansas has their offense right now is run, pass, run, pass, run, pass. It is just running until you have to pass. And I love KJ Jefferson to watch. I love the Arkansas team to watch. But until they figure that out, get a little bit more creative, they're open to things like this. And offense wasn't necessarily even the problem, but BYU was frisky and just an entertaining game all around. But going to be looking forward to seeing if Arkansas can improve at all in that department. West Virginia 17, Pittsburgh 6. Backyard brawl, always fun. I don't have anything else to say. 2 points. Sergio got for Maryland 42 over Virginia 14. Sergio got 2 points. Kansas State, I will never trust you again because you lost by 3 points to Missouri on the longest made field goal in SEC history. And I guess congrats to Missouri on that. This was such a weird game because Missouri backdoored their way into a win so many ways. They should not have won this game. I firmly believe that. Kansas State is a better team, and Missouri made all the mistakes and yet continued to find a way to stay in it by the grace of God or something of that ilk. This does not change how I feel about Missouri. If anything, it just further reinforces that I don't think Eli Drinkwitz is the answer. But this is going to give him life. And they've proven that they can at least hang in games. But again, this does not inspire any confidence in me. And I will just forever be mad at Kansas State. The score to date, Sergio 24, Tyler 15. Tyler being me. I'm super down, and I really got to start making up ground, and I don't want to talk about it anymore. So moving on to our actual 5 point for this week 4. First game, number 19 Colorado versus number 10 Oregon. Sergio picked Oregon. Now, this is tough because I want to believe in Dion, but Colorado State did really mess him up. I'm interested to see what Oregon's much better roster is going to do. I'm going to go with the Oregon Ducks on this one. Moving on, number 22 UCLA versus number 11 Utah. I think this game can get really frisky. I'm going to go with Utah because, yeah, I really trust Kyle Whittingham, and I'm just not so sure what I see. UCLA is one of those weird situations where I could see them being super good, but I also just haven't watched enough of them, and I don't know if they've even really played anyone of repute. So we're gonna see. But I'm gonna go with Utah. Next up, number 15 Ole Miss taking on number 13 Alabama. Now, Sergio picked Ole Miss. I watched a little bit of Ole Miss. They look like the same Lane Kiffin team that they've been ever since he got there. I know this burned me 2 weeks ago, but I'm going to take Alabama because I really do think that, well, first of all, I really do think that the Saban assistant, now curse, but the curse has been reversed on him, is only good for one loss a year. So he already got that out of the way with Steve Sarkisian. He ain't losing to Lane Kiffin. I'm joking when I say that. I will say that I do think that Alabama, with Jalen Milroe, Alabama still has the deep shot, and he gives them options in the run game. I think those are the only things you need to beat Ole Miss. The defense will be interesting. I'm very interested to see how the defense plays because the defense couldn't really answer for Texas, but Texas is very clearly being piloted by some sort of NFL quarterback, and Sark's a really good offensive mind. Bama fans know that. So I'm going to go with Alabama because I need to make up points, but also that I think that Alabama could very easily, with Milroe back in the driver's seat, get the explosive plays back at least. You're not going to necessarily hit those singles and doubles with Jalen Milroe right now. But if you could at least get the explosive plays back, that would be helpful. Next up, my favorite game of the week. It's the Silent Judgment Podcast Bowl. The number 14 Oregon State Beavers versus the number 21 Washington State Cougars. Shout out to the Pac-12 this year. And it's final year. They're going out. They're just making sure everybody's having their best year, except for the Arizona schools and Stanford. All right, this is tough. Sergio picked Oregon State, and I'm leaning that way. But Washington State's been really good too. I'm going to go with the Beavers. This was great podcasting, that long silent pause, by the way. I'm going to go with the Beavs. I think that the Beavs are a little bit better coached and more consistent. Not the Wazoo's not well coached, but they're much more consistent in that way. And I just love Jonathan Smith. So we're going to go with the Beavers on that one. Next up, last one for 5 wide, we have the number 6 Ohio State Buckeyes taking on the number 9 Notre Dame Fighting Irish. This is a second part of a 2-for series. First one played last year. Ohio State won. Sergio was put down in Notre Dame. Notre Dame with Sam Hartman looks amazing. It frankly looks great. Their passing game, which they haven't had a really good one in a long time, to me, at least from what I can tell, looks like it's really improved. Sam Hartman has really unlocked a part of that offense. But that being said, and Ohio State's looked not that great on the games that people have watched. That being said, I trust Ohio State's playmakers. I trust them to be able to get open. I trust all of that. And Kyle McCord looked relatively good. He's made a real connection with Marvin Harrison. I think that the explosives will still be there, much like in the Alabama game thing. I'm going to go with Ohio State because until Notre Dame shows me that they can beat Ohio State, I don't know if they can. This is the exact attitude that has gotten me in trouble before, but I'm going to do it. Next up, that was all for 5 wide. Now we have 2-point conversions. I'm going to go with Maryland Terrapins over Michigan State, 3:30 p.m. on NBC. Sergio went with Kansas over BYU, which I'm immediately jealous of, and I should have picked that, but good on him. I think that was a good pick. Maryland looks sneaky good, and Michigan State now in the process of going through the process to fire Mel Tucker. Looks like that is going to be affecting them. All right, moving on. It is time for Florida Corner. And ho doggy. Oh, I skipped a part. 1 second. Honorable mentions. Number 4, FSU traveling to Clemson. I think Clemson does really have a shot if the Boston College proves anything. Not gonna really hold out hope for them. Next, number 16, Oklahoma versus Cincinnati. I expect this to be an Oklahoma blowout, but it is notable as Cincinnati's first Big 12 game. Good for them. And next up, number 24, Iowa versus number 7, Penn State. I think Penn State will win this game handily, but I do think it will be low scoring because that's just what Iowa does, baby. Now we move on to Florida Corner. Last week, the Swamp came alive. Florida 29, Tennessee 16. Sergio and I talked about this. And the game played out pretty much exactly the way it needed to for Florida to win. One, Tennessee didn't look as good as they had been projected, which Sergio and I both believed in. Joe Milton did not magically learn accuracy and touch. Shout out to Austin Armstrong. The Gator defense looks legit this year. It's young, it's fast, it's physical. They have the perfect game plan to match up with Tennessee. And yeah, you're going to get caught on a couple deep shots. Penalties definitely swung Florida's way at a certain point in the game, but that doesn't erase a 13-point deficit, in my opinion. Florida got the ground game going. Kingsley Aguacan coming back is such a huge part of that to me. Biggest development of the team. Graham Mertz has continued to look good, and I want to knock on wood here real quick. Let me just some audio of this. Yeah, that's the knock on wood. I don't want to jinx it, but he looks really good, and most importantly, he looks in command of the offense and in the leadership position. Trevor Etienne balled out, playmakers everywhere, and Florida kept losing guys too to minor injuries, none season ending, and still kept it together. This was the big win Billy Napier needed. We talk a lot. Sergio texted me about this at a certain point in the game. That was like, no matter what happens, this is the game to establish Billy Napier's winning culture. And I pushed back on that because you have to win for it to be a winning culture. I know I'm a big Billy Napier believer, just as much as Sergio. I really do think that he can be the answer. You have to win games. It is the only metric that matters truly. It is the metric that matters the most in this sport. You have to show results. And this was the result that was needed. And it was the result we got. So this is a step in the right direction. I don't want to get too carried away. I'm very my calibration of what this season was going to be like is changing now for the better. This is closer to the team that I thought we could be. Let's see how far this rocket ship can go. Gators play Charlotte next week, which is fortunate because the SEC did suspend 3 Gators and 1 Tennessee Volunteer for the first half of their next week's games for their role in a scuffle at the end of Florida-Tennessee. Now, players should not be fighting all that. I do think, and credit to Josh Heupel for it being shown apologizing for this almost immediately to Billy Napier. Josh Heupel took a timeout as the game was winding down when they were just to stop the clock at 7 seconds, a pettiness timeout, but pettiness from the losing angle. That created the opportunity for these players to get into a fight with each other. Now, did that cause it? I don't know. Would they have done that if he hadn't called the timeout? Not sure. But it did happen immediately after he called the timeout. So correlation is not causation, but it feels that way. Provided them the opportunity to get that antsy. But I'm okay with the SEC doing this. They have to suspend them. You can't be promoting fighting. Although we did get that one meme of the Gators offensive lineman squaring up, which gonna say that one in my phone. But you don't want to be promoting this. So I understand what the SEC is doing. It fortunately for both teams does not impact them too much. They're both playing lower level teams. But yeah, moving on. Florida's ranked now, number 25. They play Charlotte, another night game in the Swamp on Saturday. If you're Florida, I just want to see improvement. I just want to continue to see moving on improvement. So yeah, great week to be a Florida Gator. In other sports, not a great week to be a Jacksonville Jaguar, as one step forward, 2 steps back is what it feels like right now. But I'm sure that Sergio is very happy being 2-0 with the Dolphins, and I'm sure that he waxed poetic about it. And if he did not, trust me, he'll do it soon. Next week, hope to be back with you guys. That's it for the Week 4 review, the Week 3 review, and Week 4 preview. Thank you guys so much for listening. Hopefully, I'll be back next week. We can record our normal podcast, but if not, just know we love you guys. We continue to do this for you guys and for us because we enjoy it, but for you, all the listeners. And yeah, without further ado, this is Sideline Judgment, and we're not biased, but go Gators.